You're watching Man Coverage with Nate Schmidt and James Bonneville on National Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, depending on where you are. This is Man Coverage. It is college football week number 4. I am Nathan Digital Schmidt. This is James Bonneville. We are here for the next hour recapping the college football games that were this past weekend and Friday. And we're going to dig into what happened, let you know what occurred and what will be from these games. And, what to look for down the road. How good is everybody? Who's overreacting after each week? I do not like the narrative after, each game. We have a new narrative on each team. I mean, can you look at the whole body of work and not just be like, Colorado beat Baylor yesterday. Now they're really good. And Deion's done the greatest job in the world. I want to see what Colorado looks like after 8 games. I want to see what they look like. I mean, I'm just not sold on them yet still, I guess. And there's several teams that I'm still uncertain about. I'm not saying they're not good. I'm not saying that they're great. But I do have question marks about that. James, what did you feel about the week as a whole? Week 4, where are we at now with this college football season with some of these teams playing 4 games?
Honestly, I come away with more questions than answers. I think the one nice thing about the 12-team playoff is you have a what the hell kind of moment game. You can come back and still make the playoff because, how many teams have you seen the second half of the year really turned it on and, back when it was 2 games, didn't make the playoffs. Back when it was 4 games, didn't make the playoffs and could have won the whole damn thing. Hell, I go back to 2014 when Ohio State won it. Quite frankly, Baylor and TCU both should have been playing there, and that would have been more interesting games than Florida State or Oregon, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think right now it's good to see what you have, get your offense going, see what kind of team, establish your identity on offense and defense, figure out who can play, who can't play, start getting into a rhythm as a team, as a coaching staff, all that type of thing. But what's going to really matter is who's hot at the end of the season. Not only who's hot and who's playing well, but who's healthy. Depth to me is going to be more important this year than any season in the history of college football because you can't just play 1-2 games, pop, there you go. You're going to have to play, in some instances, a conference championship game and then several playoff games to get to the title chance. And it's going to take a lot of depth and, also being hot, at the end. So that is going to be interesting to watch down the stretch. One team that I can tell you now that I can honestly say I feel good about them is Tennessee. Me living here in Knoxville, I get a lot of access to the Vols. And, there was a ton of hype surrounding this team. I had question marks. But after watching them yesterday and also, watching them the entire season, I feel comfortable about them, mainly because they have a quarterback who can run this offense. But honestly, it's not about him. To me, it's about how well this defense is playing, how well Dylan Sampson and Deshaun Bishop, the gentleman who was on this show several years ago when he was in high school, Carnes High School, running the football, and then the improvement of the talent level at the wide receiver position. So they've got playmakers now. James, what did you see about Tennessee in that game yesterday here at Owen Field versus the Sooners. What do you think about them now, and what did you see out of them in that matchup?
Well, I mean, do I think they're world beaters? Not yet. I mean, there still are question marks. Quite frankly, you look at that tackle position, their line, they don't have the depth they need, especially at tackle. I mean, OU was getting in the backfield pretty good. And I mean, Nico's still, he's a sophomore, but let's be honest, he's still a freshman. I mean, when he didn't play that much last year, does the kid have talent? Absolutely. But when the lights get turned up a little brighter and you don't have that strengthened offensive line, if they have problems there, that could become a huge issue. Now, what gives me solace, and we've talked about this before, is that defense. I mean, everybody goes after that Kent State game when they put up a 70 burger on Kent State. Yeah, it's Kent State. But that defense has been an absolute unmitigated success for Josh Heupel this year.
I agree. And I take away, I kind of eliminate the UTC and the Kent State game. Those mean nothing to me.
Yeah.
But what they did against North Carolina State, who's been proven to suck, but still, they're a Power 4 opponent. They're an ACC team. They've got a good coach. So I'm going to give them UT the benefit of the doubt on that game. They played well. It was a domination of a big time program. I mean, NC State is not a title contender every year, but they're a decent program in college football. So beating their ass means something to me. Going there last night, not having the greatest offensive game that they could have possibly had as far as Nico and the offense, and still, beating the Oklahoma Sooners in Owen Field by 2 scores. And let's be honest, that other Oklahoma touchdown was late. So they were ahead by even more than that. That meant something to me. Nico's numbers were pretty pedestrian, 13 of 21, 194 yards, 1 touchdown. But he did, he did okay. It wasn't great. As you said, there was issues on the offensive line, but that leads me to what I think about Oklahoma. Their defense is lights out. Venables has that defense playing great. I was very impressed with not only the execution, but the game plan that he put together. I believe they had only 3 sacks, but they had 9 tackles for loss. So that means they were in the backfield all night long. It seemed like then they needed a good play and they needed to get the Tennessee offense off the field. They were able to do so. The only problem was Jackson Arnold was garbage. As you mentioned, his wide receivers weren't helping him out much. Their offense is inept at best. And I do think that moving forward, I think you have to put Michael Hawkins Jr. out there. And I think you have to roll with him because he, as you mentioned in our pre-show conversation, he gives them another dimension with his legs and being able to scramble and made some good passes down the stretch. What did you think about Oklahoma's offense and their defense in this game?
Well, the receiving core is a dumpster fire. I mean, anybody in the SEC who thinks Hollywood Brown and freaking CeeDee Lamb are going to be lining up on the outside in Norman are kidding themselves. I mean, Jackson Arnold can't throw the ball to himself. So now Hawkins provides that additional dimension that they can move the ball and put more people in the box because, I mean, if you become a completely throwing team, they don't have the personnel. I mean, they become Florida State in many ways, except Jackson Arnold's a better quarterback. I mean, quite frankly, if I'm Jackson Arnold, I don't know why I went to Norman in the first place. Like, literally, it does not fit him. I mean, a perfect place would be, I don't know, call me crazy, Columbus.
I don't know. Watching him last night, I don't want him in Columbus. I got to be honest. I wasn't impressed with him at all. I know it's just one game, and he has done some good things this season. But yesterday was a big disappointment for me, and I get it. He was under pressure. UT's defensive line was coming after him. Their linebackers were also making life tough on him. But when your defense goes out there, gets a turnover, gets you the ball in a huge football game and hands it to you right there going into the damn end zone, you can't hand it right back to him. That's on him, man. You can't fumble that ball, and he did it twice. They had I think actually they had 3 turnovers.
3 turnovers
that came right after Tennessee had turned it over. At least 2 of them did, and the other one was something I can't remember where it happened. But they turned the ball over twice right after they had taken it away from Tennessee. You can't do that when you're playing a top 10 team, at home, fighting for a conference championship and a shot at a playoff. You just can't turn it over like that. And that's on him. And that's why he got taken out. It wasn't because he was a horrible player. It was because he kept giving the ball away to the other team. And you notice, say whatever you want to about Hawkins. He wasn't turning it over. Not only did he have those fumbles, but Jackson Arnold also threw a horrible interception at the very beginning of the game, which kind of set the tone for the rest of the afternoon. So that gave me problems with him. And if I was Venables, I wouldn't put him back out there at this point. Just based on what I saw yesterday, I'd sit him down for a while and let him think about it. Like when Nate Schmidt used to cause trouble at school, I got shut down, put over into the think tank, and had to think about what I had done. And that's what Jackson Arnold needs to do. So interesting ball game there, but I'm way higher on the Tennessee Volunteers than I was at the beginning of the season, just based off these two games versus NC State and Oklahoma. I was pretty impressed with what they did, not offensively, but as a team and as a whole and as a defense. I was pretty excited. The other game that we're going to unfortunately have to talk about is one that occurred a little bit further north of there, in a state that we will not name, but I guess I do have to say it. Michigan played USC yesterday. Really, the biggest problem to me was the start that USC got off to. I mean, they were just horrible at the beginning of the game. They looked nothing like the team that we've seen for the most of, big part of the year. They just didn't look like that. They got down 14-0, and that was an issue. They were able to come back and take the lead, but it's more of what the same of what you talked about last year. They're just still not stout enough up front, and Michigan exploited it and ran them over. And holy shit, we've got a sighting of Mr. Edwards. He finally showed back up and led Michigan's offense back to what we kind of expected to see from him with some big plays. And he had a big long run. And then Mullings is actually way better than him and one of the best running backs I've seen all year. Talk to me about what you saw out of USC and Michigan.
I mean, honestly, did Lincoln Riley even watch film of Michigan before this week?
I was going to say that, and I'm struggling with what the hell he thought was going to be happening in this game, because he looked completely lost all day.
I mean, that first half, it was as if they thought they were going to play LSU and that they thought they could go deep. And we talked about that, about how everybody's going to run cover 3 and force them to freaking push the ball underneath and have long drives. Can USC do that? I mean, they had 51 attempts for 283 yards. I'm sorry, for 51 attempts, you better be around 350 to 400 yards. Yeah. 283. Now, I will say in the second half, they suddenly took their head out of their ass and realized Alex Orji, which I don't know how in the hell you didn't know this. Helen Keller could tell you this. Alex Orji ain't going to throw the freaking ball. No. Plus, Colston Loveland was hurt. I mean, Michigan's number one receiver. Listen to these stats. Samaje Morgan had 3 catches for 6 yards. Marlon Klein had 1 reception for 10. They were going to run the ball. What did they do in the second half? They ran a glorified 3-4, put their safeties in the box, and forced Michigan. I mean, they had to run through them. Yeah. And that's how they got back in the game. And they started, I mean, if they would have played that way to begin with, USC boat races Michigan, because Michigan had withdrawn the ball. Instead, they allowed Michigan to dictate the pace. And Mullings is really had a really nice game. I mean, quite frankly, he's the number one back. You look at Edwards, he had that 41-yard touchdown, but you take that away, he was 13 for 33.
Yeah, I was just saying that I finally saw him do something again.
Yeah.
Which was interesting because we haven't seen much out of him since about 2 years ago. So he did, at least he had a touchdown. But Mullins is their best back, and he reminded me some of Hassan Haskins
Yeah,
the way that
he
he
did.
ran yesterday and took the game over. It would look like, what Hassan used to do when he was toting the rock for Michigan, and reminded me a lot of it, the way that he, was just pounding this team. And I really think, and I know that I'm biased as hell, but I do think USC is a more complete team as far as their offense goes. But
yeah,
this is a game I feel like they had to win, and this shows other teams the blueprint on how to beat them, don't you think?
Well, honestly, I don't understand why Lincoln Riley in the past has been known for being an offensive genius. You've got an incredible receiver in Zach Branch who's got unreal speed. Isolate him away from Will Johnson and just throw underneath and allow him to be creative. I mean, it's like almost like Mike Leach type of offense where a short pass acts like a run, and allow him to make people miss. Because, I mean, the kid's speed's freakish. I mean, he is really quick laterally too as well.
I think he needs more than 6 touches, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the guy I would try and get the ball, like you said, bubble screens, line him up in the backfield and throw a swing route. I mean, I don't care. Just get him the ball more, because I feel like he's their best player.
With Grant and Graham up the middle, you're not going to run the ball. You got to get the ball to the outside and force Michigan to go sideline to sideline and tire their ass out. They went into a street fight with a pea shooter. I mean, this could have gotten uglier.
It could have, and I think this is actually a big game for Michigan, because they realize they can go back, to what they do and still be successful. So I, that worries me a little bit, because they definitely got back to their roots. And Sharon Moore was like, "Hey, listen, we're going to put the running quarterback in. We're going to run the football, and that's what we do here." And they did it. And it was kind of a rude awakening, in my opinion, for USC, what it looks like to come to a big-time Big Ten program and try and play football, because you're going to get your ass kicked for most of the day. And unfortunately, that's what happened. But it was a crazy ending. That sequence at the end kind of blew me away. You knew they were going to run the ball, James.
I know.
I don't understand why they didn't have more guys up near the line of scrimmage and weren't playing their linebackers closer. It just confused me a little bit as to what the thought process was, with the USC defensive coaches. And as we mentioned, Lincoln Riley's game plan in the first half was garbage. So it was a tough pill for me to swallow watching that one. Another, one of the most complexing teams of the season that's confused me is the Vanderbilt Commodores. I don't even know why we're talking about the Vanderbilt Commodores, but we are, mainly because they played Missouri yesterday, who I believe is a really good team. And, Vandy gave them all they wanted. And, this is a team we saw Vanderbilt beat Virginia Tech and look pretty good doing it. And then we saw them come back and, fall to a non-Power 4 school and look bad doing that. And then yesterday, they gave Mizzou everything they wanted. What did you see when you watched this game yesterday? And do you think that Vandy just played up, or did Missouri have a bad game? Is Missouri not as good as we thought? Help me with this one.
Honestly, 2 things. I think Vanderbilt is better than what we thought. They're way more athletic this year than last year. And, you look at what Coach Lee has done, bringing in Jerry Kill and a lot of those New Mexico State players. That offense is creating problems in the SEC. Now, do I think they're going to win the SEC? No, I don't smoke crack. But do I think, I said this last week, do I think they have a chance at a bowl game? Abso-freaking-lutely. And but at the same time, Mizzou, with all this talent, man, I don't get this team at all. Like, they just don't look like they're playing together in the least. It's like they roll the football out there. You got Luther Bird.
Yeah, without him, where would they have been yesterday without him?
They lose by 2 touchdowns, minimum.
Bingo.
Minimum.
Bingo. I think he's one of the best. Where does he stand in college football? Because, who's a better receiver than him right now in college football? Overall skill level, speed, game breaking ability. I'm trying to think of who is a better wideout than him.
I've got 3 names, but I think you can make an argument both ways. Zach Branch out of USC, I think is special.
He's good.
I think there's a certain freshman in Ohio State.
Oh, really? What's his name?
Yeah. I tend to forget. And then Ryan Williams at Alabama. I mean, there's just this X factor about, especially the last 2, that just at any given time period they can just turn it on and just make crap happen.
Yeah, I agree.
But I mean, Burton, it's not him. I mean, he can't play defense. I mean, what are you supposed to do? I mean, is he going to hand out water too as well? I mean, does he have a newspaper route he's supposed to do too? I mean, he can't be everything to this team.
Well, we have to mention the guy that we talked about last week that I gave my gold star to, and that's Nate Noel.
Yeah.
Who showed up in a big way. Again, 24 carries, 199 yards. How do you run for 199 yards and have 0 touchdowns? That's almost impossible. Like, you ran down the field, the length of the field twice and never got to the end of it. I don't know. That's kind of concerning that they weren't able to punch it in. I guess one time they gave it to Marcus Carroll when they got down close. But you got to reward this boy when he gets you all the way down there and get him his touchdowns, right?
You would think. I mean, the guy's got to eat.
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
About. Give the guy his touchdown, man. 200 yards on. I mean, I don't care. It's Vanderbilt, but still, it's an SEC opponent and running for 200 yards. And then the game he had last week, I'm pretty sold on him as a replacement for Schrader, who led that team last year. And another team that we've talked about quite a bit, and we're kind of thinking they were in the race for winning their conference and probably still considering that is the Utah Utes, the 2 Utes who were ranked number 12 going into the game yesterday playing Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State was 3-0. Utah was 3-0. Somebody had to lose this football game, and it was a close one, 22-19. Talk to me a little bit about what you saw out of Utah and Oklahoma State, in this clash of the Big 12.
Honestly, I look at this game and it says 22-19, but it really was Utah putting their foot down and just kicking the crap out of Oklahoma State. I mean, Oklahoma State, scored 16 in the fourth quarter, but they nearly outgained Oklahoma State by 200 yards. Cam Rising gets hurt. What's the defense do? Like it always does. It kicks ass. And the Utah is like a bar fight type of team. The team you just don't want to freaking play because, I mean, are they a good team without Cam Rising? Yeah. But with Cam Rising, they're a very good team. And this is a team I do not want to see in the playoffs. I mean, if you're going to be matched up against them, that's a team you really don't want to be matched up with because you're going to get guys hurt.
Yeah.
And
the fact that they were able to win this game, without him even playing and with their replacement, Isaac Wilson, throwing 2 interceptions.
Correct.
That says a lot to me about where this team is at, that they can overcome that type of thing. And I think they're sort of getting used to playing without Cam Rising since they did it all last year. And they've already had to do it at least twice this year that I can recall, maybe more. He just, for whatever reason, he can't seem to get healthy and stay healthy. But they can continue to win, especially when Micah Bernard can run for 182 yards at 7.3 a carry. That helps a lot of things out on your offense. Trust me, when you got a guy that can churn out those type of yards. I mean, I think they ran for almost 250 yards as a team yesterday.
Yeah.
That's got to be a little bit concerning for old Mullet Man Gundy and his defense moving forward.
He's a man, though. He's a man.
40.
What I find funny is, a name we kept talking about quite a bit last year was Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon has had a horrendous year. Granted, I think everybody and their dog is stacking the box against him, and you're seeing more receiving yards. But is he that good? I mean, I think we have to actually put that into the equation this year because, I mean, he really was not much yesterday, and their passing game wasn't much better. I mean, granted, traditionally Oklahoma State is a second half team, second half of the season team. We've seen it time and time again where hell, last year they lost to South Alabama. I've seen them lose to Central Michigan. They've lost some games. You're like, what the hell's going on? Yet they're always sitting there at the end of the road, playing for a Big 12 title possibly. I think next week's game against Kansas State is going to be huge.
And I'm glad you said Kansas State, because they have looked pretty good this year. I mean, they took down UT Martin 41-6. They beat Tulane, who is a good program.
At Tulane in that little Pine Box Stadium. Yeah,
I mean, it was a close game, but they came out ahead. There you go. They beat the crap out of Arizona 31-7, which kind of, surprised a lot of people. And then yesterday, they come and face the BYU Cougs, and things did not go well for the Kansas State Wildcats. Talk to me a little bit about, what happened yesterday with Kansas State, and did we maybe overrate them a little bit, or did they just get stole by the Cougars?
I circled this game on my calendar as a game that Kansas State was going to struggle with, especially if this game was played at night. And guess what? It was played at night. People don't realize playing BYU at night is incredibly difficult. It's like Baton Rouge playing in Death Valley without the smell of bourbon throughout the stadium. It's loud. It's crazy. It's a lot different than Kansas State's used to. And you look at the first quarter, I saw them imposing their will on BYU. They just couldn't punch it in the end zone when they got inside the 10-yard line. I mean, you look at Avery Johnson's a hell of a running quarterback. He reminds me a lot of Eric Crouch with better arm form. But once they got some turnovers and the ball started getting turned over and things weren't going their way, they really imploded on themselves. I mean, that punt return, holy crap. And then the fumble return. I mean, you look at the stats and you're like, how's this a 38-9 game? But I mean, honestly, BYU really stuck it to them from the second half on. And quite frankly, the crowd really played a huge factor. It rattled Avery Johnson. He showed being a young sophomore.
He sure did. And it's interesting, seeing some of these matchups for the first time within these conferences. I think that is very interesting to me, watching, Kansas State go to BYU for the first time, watching USC go to the Big House for the first time, watching Tennessee go to Oklahoma for the first time. Some of these teams have traveled well and held up and looked good doing it. And other teams kind of look a little bit shell-shocked and a little bit lost in these new environments. So that's something to keep our eye on and
there's no familiarity.
No, none. None. You
even,
just don't know what you're getting into until you get off that bus and the stands fill up. You're not really sure what's going to happen. We're about to come up against the break here, but before we do, I think it would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about the Clemson NC State game. Lots of people, after watching Georgia Clemson, they just like, oh, same old thing. Dabo needs to hit the portal. What the hell? But I kind of liked the way that they fought against Georgia, even with their offense not clicking on all cylinders. Their defense held up for much of the game. I know they, got tired at the end and were a little bit exposed, but still I was, somewhat impressed with Clemson, so to speak, playing, the number one ranked team in the country. And yesterday they looked good against NC State. And I know we've seen NC State get throttled by the Vols as well, but we've proven that Tennessee is good, I think. And, Clemson got their shot yesterday, and that offense looked better than I've seen in quite some time, putting up 59 points. Where is Clemson at right now? And where are they in the ACC? Do you put them right behind Miami, or where you have them at this point after week 4?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I don't think I've seen enough quite yet. But the problem is with Clemson is we're judging them against the Trevor Lawrence teams and against the Deshaun Watson teams. And that's not fair. I mean, when their first game of the year is against Georgia, and we all know Georgia's a good team. We all know Georgia's going to be in the playoff. Are they an elite team? Can they win the national title? I don't know. I mean, Clemson can't, but they're better than we thought they were. They're better than what they were under DJU. That's for damn sure. I think they're right there, if not number 2 to Miami in the ACC right now.
Yeah, I do too.
They're better than we think they are.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about Miami as well, but I think that people may be underestimating Clemson a little bit, just because this is a team. This quarterback is still young. Some of these players are still young, and they're going to get better. They have depth, unlike some of these other teams, because Dabo does recruit, and he recruits guys that fit his system. Sometimes they don't have a number 1 or number 2 class in the country, but they get guys that Dabo thinks can do what he wants to do on offense and defense. And I think they are a little bit better than people are giving them credit for. And I'm interested to see what they look like moving forward. And I think they will be there at the end for the ACC title. So we'll see what that looks like.
I will say, though, I think NC State is a far cry from what they once were. I mean, granted, they're never going to be a team that's going to get multiple 4- and 5-star kids. They're going to be a 3-star program with some 2 stars, hopefully get some stuff in the portal. But that means you got to hit every single year. And this year, they just don't look as tough.
No, and their defense, to me, I'm thinking back about like Mario Williams and what's the kid's name, Chubb, and
Bradley Chubb,
and some of these defensive ends that they produced, and the pressure they used to put on the quarterbacks, and they would be able to stay in games because their defense could, give teams fits on offense, and they just can't seem to do that anymore. They don't have that defense that they used to, that was able to, give other teams problems. And that's an issue. And they've looked rough and given up, over 100 points in 2 games versus Tennessee and Clemson. So give us a second here, folks, as we're going to go to break, but we'll be right back to hit the rest of this week 4 game slate. Thank you.
National Streaming Sports is brought to you in part by BetUs.com, designed for true fans. NFL odds, Week 1 and futures, college football odds, including Heisman Trophy favorites and playoff odds, NBA odds of division winners and playoffs, Major League Baseball playoff and World Series odds, the National Hockey League Conference playoffs and Stanley Cup odds, and boxing wagers. Betting opportunities include versus the spreads and outright winners, also during the game. Use our link on our website, nessp.info, the Bet Us Opportunities webpage, for a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. Must be 21 years old, and remember, bet responsibly.
Wonderful. We are back. Big shout out to National Streaming Sports Network, who helped make all of this possible, as well as BetUs.com, America's trusted sportsbook. We appreciate their sponsorship of this show, letting us talk about the great college football world that we live in. James, I was on I called into a show, or I was asked to call into a show earlier in the week where we got into some discussions, and one of the topics that was brought up was Nebraska. And Keith Engel, who I respect tremendously and love, he's been doing this a lot longer than I have, but he brought up the Nebraska is back thing on the show, and then started telling me how Dylan Raiola was the best freshman quarterback in the country. And I was like, bro, what are we basing this on? We're basing this on the Colorado win, or what are we? It's like, no, I'm talking about the whole season. And, we got we went back and forth a little bit. And basically I just said, I need to see more, and I'm not 100% sold on them. And I'm certainly not going to give them back status based upon a victory over Colorado. And they finally, went up against a team with a pulse, meaning a team that can play, defense and has some tenacity on the line of scrimmage. And that's, of course, Illinois with a coach that we know, values the trenches. And Nebraska, got all they wanted and more versus the Illini. What did you see out of Raiola and the boys, and where are you at with Nebraska?
I think Nebraska is better than they were last year. I think, I mean, at the end of the day, Raiola's a freshman. He made some freshman mistakes, but he's a lot more confident in the pocket than I thought he was going to be. He actually looked pretty decent, but it's almost like Notre Dame fans with Ron Paulus, where they were anointing him as being the great one before he even played a game. How about we get to a bowl game first, Nebraska, before we start talking crap? I mean, it's been 7 years, since you've been to a bowl game. I mean, it's let's crawl before we can walk.
Well, who was the better quarterback yesterday? Luke Altmaier, who threw 21-27 for 215 yards and 4 touchdowns, or Dylan Raiola, who, was okay. He was good, but Luke Altmaier was more efficient. He didn't turn the ball over. He threw 4 touchdowns. He was the better player. And, the days of Nebraska just running people over, is gone. I think they're trying to be this pass-happy team, and, that maybe that's the identity they're going for. I don't know, but that you can get into trouble with that with a freshman quarterback. Am I wrong?
Yeah. The part that always scares me with freshman quarterbacks is less their ability and more their mindset. Where if they start getting a few turnovers like Jackson Arnold, it's like quicksand. You try harder to get out of it. What does it do? It sinks you farther deeper in. And you look at Luke Altmaier, honest to God, his progression from last year to this year has been remarkable. I thought he held on to the ball too long and got sacked a few times. That really could have cost Illinois some games. But between him and Bryant, and they've got a strong offensive line, which has been Bielema's calling card, and you look at their defense, especially their interior, it's hard to run against them. It is every single time, no matter if he was at Wisconsin or when he was DC, at Kansas State too.
Yeah,
they're a hard team to run against up the middle. You're going to have to work the outsides against them to open it up in the middle.
And, we talk about, the Big Ten as a whole, and one team we don't really mention is Illinois. I mean, we just, for whatever reason, when we're talking about the best teams in the conference, and I'm guilty of, more guilty of this than anyone, I never really throw Illinois in there. Well, they're 4-0 right now, and they go to Happy Valley next week against Penn State at 7:30. It's going to be a whiteout. It's going to be nuts. If Illinois can go in there and beat Penn State, we better start talking about them, because they just may have snuck up on us. I mean, how important do you think this game is for the Illinois team moving forward? I just think it's a huge game for them.
I'm looking forward to the matchup between the OC at Penn State with Kononecki, the old Kansas OC now at Penn State, who's doing pretty goddamn well, versus Aaron Henry and Brett Bielema in that lineup. I mean, quite frankly, this could be the calling card that Drew Eller needs to look like the quarterback everybody expected him to be. I mean, quite frankly, I expect this game to be one or two of the first games we talk about on next week's show.
Yeah, I do too. And I'm really actually excited to see this one. I'm looking forward to seeing if Illinois can match up. I think they can. I truly believe that this is a game that Illinois can win. What will they win it or not? I don't know. But I think this is a game where they can win, and Bielema knows how to play in Penn State. And he sometimes shows up in the big games, and we know his counterpart over there in Penn State has had trouble playing ranked teams and winning, or not playing them. Hell, he can play them all he wants, but winning against ranked teams has been an issue for James Franklin, and that to me, is something that you have to take into account when you're talking about this game next week. Staying in the Big Ten, I know you've been waiting to talk about this all morning. The Iowa Hawkeyes versus the Minnesota Gophers. Give me your thoughts on this game and talk about where you think each of these teams are so far this season.
I mean, it's a tale of two halves. I mean, the first half, the Gophers, outside the interception, I mean, they really stuck it to Iowa. But that second half, Iowa did such a – I mean, it was – Kirk Ferentz completely and utterly outcoached P.J. Fleck in that second half so badly. Like, it was an embarrassment watching a rivalry game where they put up 24-0 on you in the second half. When you had the lead and it looked like things were going your way, I mean, it was – I mean, Iowa played Iowa football. And I'll say this, Caleb Johnson, I think he's the best running back in the country right now. He's that good. He is just that good. He is 6 foot, 225, good speed. Really is more patient to the game this year than he was last year. He is leading the country in rushing. And this Iowa defense is as strong as it's been in the past. No, you could throw against them. They don't have the guys to get to the quarterback like they once did, but they keep everything underneath you. You're not going to go over the top against them.
What do you feel right now about your coach? I mean, 6-7 last year. We're 2-2 this year. You know, I just had extremely high hopes for him. You know, when he took this program over. You know, I think back to 2019 when he had you guys 11-2. You were, won the Outback Bowl, finished the season, I believe, 7th in the AP, 10th, or maybe 10th in the AP, but were as high as 7. Haven't come anywhere close to that since, James.
No.
Why? What's going on up there? Can he turn this around? I mean, I'm not seeing it.
I mean, you look back at 19, there was a very balanced approach to that offense between the run and the pass. Then you got to the COVID year, and it changed greatly because Soraka left to go to Penn State. We brought Mike Samford in, and it really didn't feel like we had any identity. And then we just basically ran the ball to Mo Ibrahim over and over and over again because it worked. And the passing game just had no imagination. Now, honestly, our offense seems very predictable, and executing is becoming unpredictable. Our defense it has to do too much to keep us in the games. And honestly, I mean, if it wasn't for the $22 million buyout right now, I think would be a real possibility that PJ Fleck could be not in Minnesota next year. And if I'd be a betting man, I got to say Con Necky, the Penn State OC, would be the number one guy they'd look at because, hell, he's from Litchfield. He's a Minnesota boy. He didn't go to school here, but he's from here and he understands the state.
I'm glad you went there because that's kind of – I didn't want to say it, but that's kind of what I was asking. And to me, $22 million is $22 million not – or 22 million reasons not to pull the trigger on him.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, do you want to win? Do you want to compete in this new, conference that is a super conference? Do you want to, make making the 12-team playoff is just not is hard, in my opinion, as making the 4-team playoff. And so you can get there if you have a season like you did in 2019.
Yeah.
And I don't see a season like that coming back out the way that I've watched this program the last couple of years. And it, I don't know.
It just seems disjointed watching them. Like,
yes.
You don't see them play 4 quarters. You see them play like they'll just make mistakes. Like you look at the North Carolina game, that's a game they should have won. Like they really should have won. Yeah, Darius Taylor didn't play. But, I mean, Kasich missed 3 field goals, but the offense was just so damn conservative. And I mean, granted, the offensive line didn't do much help, but the way they set plays up, I was pre-predicting just by the formation what the hell they were going to do. I've seen it so much.
Yeah.
And if I can do it, Mac Brown can do it.
Oh, definitely. And that's my issue is when he was at Western Michigan, the team was so well coached. I mean, there was very few mistakes. The game plans, the schemes were all on point, led them to compete with anyone and fight in every single game. And they always had a chance. And I'm just not seeing that. And I'm not sure where the disconnect is. I don't know if he's just not getting the same type of caliber players. It's just confusing. But I'm glad you brought up Mac Brown because I don't know if you saw his post-game press conference last night, but I watched it, and he looked like a man that had been punched in the nuts. And he took all the blame. I give him credit for that. He put it all on his shoulders, but he was embarrassed. And he should be. He was embarrassed of his team that gave up 70 points
at home
to James Madison at home in Chapel Hill. I mean, how the hell do you have? I mean, I thought when I first saw it, I was like, wait, are they scrimmaging basketball already? And did James Madison beat the Tar Heels in basketball? Because it said it was 70-50. I mean, wow. I mean, I didn't think North Carolina was that good. I know they were 3-0, but I had not seen anything that led me to believe that they were world beaters. But losing to James Madison at home and giving up 70 points, that's got to cause some issues in the locker room, don't you think?
They were down 53-21 at the half.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I mean, Grant, I have never been a Division I head football coach. I've just stayed at a Holiday Inn Express. But what the hell do you tell a team at home to a group of 5 team when you're down 32 at the half?
Yeah.
I mean, besides losing your freaking mind on them. I mean, it just, I don't know what the hell you say. I mean, James Madison only scored 17 points in the second half. But he scored 53 in the first. They had a pick 6 and a block punt. I mean, they gave up 600 yards, over 600 yards against James Madison.
That's not good.
I feel bad for Mac, but I feel like week to week, they had this problem last year. You don't know what team you're going to get.
Yeah. Things have fallen off a little bit, They were just riding high back when, even before Drake May, when Howell was the quarterback.
Yeah.
I just really thought, that this team was on its way back. I felt like they were up and coming and that Mac Brown was building something. And then it just kind of stopped and started going the other direction. And this game kind of highlights that more than anything, losing to James Madison at home.
This is a team that could beat Clemson in Miami, yet will get boat raced by a group of 5.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get much more dynamic than, much bigger delta than that.
No, that's what concerns me. I mean, they could win some games and they could lose every game from here on out, and that's an issue. I know we've got several other games to get to here before we move on, but I do want to get your thoughts on my game yesterday. It was kind of a rough start for the Ohio State Buckeyes. I was going to be honest, a little nervous when it was 7-7, and Marshall was moving the ball against this defense, which not many people have done since Jim Knowles took over, and especially since year 2 of Jim Knowles. But they were doing it, and then when their quarterback got hurt, things started to go the other direction a little bit. But where is this team at now? We got 4 weeks of tape now on Chip Kelly calling plays. What do you think about where the Buckeyes are at right now, and what did yesterday tell you, if anything?
I was so prepared to mess with your head and come in and talk about, and that first drive, Marshall drove down the field like they were going through Swiss cheese, and they just punched it in. And then the game started, and Ohio State kicked the crap out of them.
No, there was people online. Jay Richardson, who's on Channel 6 in Columbus and played defensive end at Ohio State. He was from Columbus. He posted something online and was like, "This is not good. This defense needs to step up. This is all on coaching. You have to be ready. Other teams are going to see this tape and know how to go on." I'm like, what?
Yeah,
they scored one touchdown.
Hey, Nate, I know you're a huge Ohio State fan, but honest to God, it would be, and nothing would make me happier to just happen to new age Bama fans, the new money Bama fans, is having one of those years where shit just doesn't go your way, to feel more humbled about the good times. Because I mean, let's be honest. Charles Huff's a good coach. What he's done at Marshall is pretty amazing. And quite frankly, that was a good first drive. But common sense is going to tell you, you got Chip Kelly sitting in your freaking side holster. And I mean, Abuka's touchdown, Jeremiah Smith, Junkins, I would think would still be running if there wasn't an end zone. I mean, the offensive line looked much more complete. I mean, right now, they're the best team in the Big Ten by far. I mean, the secondary, Caleb Downs really is fitting in nicely. Tell me I'm wrong. I mean, honestly, I watched that. It was like the first drive was the first drive. They scored. Whoop-de-freaking-do. Here comes the offense, and start the train up because it's coming down the tracks if you like it or not.
Yeah, buddy, I'm going to tell you one thing real quick here, and obviously I'm biased as hell, and I admit that every moment of this show. But when you have two running backs that average over 12 yards per carry in the entirety of a game, and both of them, score 2 touchdowns, you got things working. And I know this offensive line has been a subject of scrutiny from me, from you, from a lot of people. But run blocking right now is working.
I thought they played pretty well yesterday.
They're playing better, and it helps having these two guys in the backfield.
Yeah.
But when you and Travion Henderson is an all-time running back at Ohio State. He really is, just based on when he played. The production he's put up is good. But when you look at him next to Quinshon Junkins, it's like he's the backup. And
he really is.
He's the backup.
I mean, honestly, what impressed me most yesterday watching Junkins play, and it kind of bothered me. I knew this before, but I guess it just didn't. I knew it, but I couldn't say it out loud, is how patient he is.
Yes.
Like he is so good at waiting for the block to happen and then making his break rather than
exploding and beating everybody down the field. So he can start off, kind of Le'Veon Bell style, waiting for the hole to open up. And then when it does, he's way faster than Le'Veon Bell ever was and is gone. And I don't know if you saw, but he said one of the reasons that he transferred to Ohio State was so that he could play in the Big Ten and have Gus Johnson call his games and start. He said he wanted to hear Gus Johnson start screaming when he scored the touchdown, a long touchdown. And yesterday he had 5 long runs.
He has to actually
and 2 long
watch
touchdowns.
the game. He can't be playing and watching it.
He said that they recorded it, so I don't think he heard it live in his helmet or any shit, but he heard it afterwards, and then they took a picture with him and Gus after the game, which was pretty cool. So kudos to Quinshon Junkins. I guess I'll just go ahead and say it. He's been the best player on this offense all year so far. And that's saying something because there is an immense amount of talent on this offense. But I digress. Just wanted to get that out there because it made me happy to talk about Texas A&M. We saw them week 1. They got beat by Notre Dame, but, if it kind of appeared that if they had better quarterback play, that, they might have a chance of looking good this season, and that, Elko's regime might be able to be better. I don't know. I guess I was somewhat enthused by their performance, even though they lost. Their quarterback was garbage, but what else is new in Texas A&M football history? But yesterday they did get 2 touchdown throws out of Reed, and they needed them to beat Bowling Green. That concerns me a little bit. Maybe I was wrong at how good they are. What do you think after watching Texas A&M beat Bowling Green 26-20 yesterday? I believe they were at home too, were they not?
Yeah, they were. But honestly, I think you're being a little hard on the Beeve there, Nate. I mean, you look at the rest of their MAC schedule. I mean, they've got Northern Illinois, they got Buffalo. I mean, oh wait, they're not in the MAC. They're in the the SEC. Yeah, they're screwed.
Yeah.
I mean, but
I thought you were talking about BG for a second. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. I mean, when literally every single year, it's the same damn thing. Texas, A&M, Miami. I mean, at least Texas had a time period. Nebraska had a time period. Miami had a time period. When the hell did A&M have a time period?
Never.
They
think that their fans think that they're this one-time powerhouse in football, and honestly, they're not. They never have been. Yet they spend money like they're Alabama, they spend money like they think that they're an Alabama program. They pay $80 million to get their coach out of there, who's won a national championship in the past. I mean, I think he won 2 actually, right? One at OSU and one at Florida State.
Yeah, LSU was a assistant coach from one at Florida State. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so he's won, been a part of 2 national championships. He comes there, makes them pretty competitive, and they pay $80 million to send his ass packing. And they think some other guys that had success at Duke is going to come in and do better. I mean, I don't know. This program confuses the hell out of me. And let me tell you, it doesn't get a ton easier for them because they play Arkansas next week. They play Missouri after that. Mississippi State will probably be a win. Then they play LSU, and then they got Auburn and Texas. So they honestly don't have a super tough schedule, but they have to play the number 1 team in the country in Texas. They have to play LSU. They have to play Missouri. Those are 3 good teams, and I expect them to lose all 3 of those.
I feel bad for Mike Elko, because I think he's a good coach. I mean, honestly, looking back on it, I feel bad for Jimbo. I feel bad for Kevin Sumlin.
I do too.
Honestly, I think it's time for not only university administration, but the boosters at A&M to take a serious look in the mirror and ask themselves a question. When you keep doing the same shit over and over again, it doesn't work. That's Einstein's definition of insanity. And you keep doing the same shit over and over again.
It's insanity.
I don't care if you're getting $3 million to go to A&M a year. Are you willing to lose the games you lose and then get harassed the way you're going to get harassed? Is $3 million worth it? Because I'd rather be happy and make nothing.
I would have rather stayed at Duke and made, a couple $1 million and get, win 8 games and get treated like you're a hero and, have a good time, live in Durham, North Carolina, eat some barbecue, go to the beach in the Outer Banks and shit. I mean, I would have never taken this job, and I just don't see it ending well. It hasn't ended well for anyone.
You go to a bowl game, they're happy at Duke. You go 8-4, they're sainting you.
That's what I'm saying. You win 8 games and they throw you a fucking parade, and you go to Texas A&M and it's like they expect you to win a national championship every year, even though they've never won one.
Yeah,
and I don't get it. But same old shit, different toilet with the Aggies. There's a bunch of other games we could talk about, but we've only got about a minute left, and I want to discuss next week. We got a couple of pretty good matchups. But I want to get your thoughts on which ones stick out to you the most. There's no huge marquee head-to-head top 5 matchups except for Georgia, Alabama. That is probably, the number 1 game by far. I think we just have to talk about that one. We already talked about Illinois, Penn State. Georgia, Alabama. what are your thoughts on this game? And then we'll talk Louisville, Notre Dame. But I want to talk Georgia, Alabama first. What do you see happening in this one?
Is Carson Beck going to play? That's the key. If Carson Beck doesn't play, I'm taking Bama.
Yeah,
because I think Georgia's.
What's the extent of it? Do you know?
I thought I heard a UC joint injury, but I'm hearing some people are saying he's out 2 to 4. Others are saying he could play. I don't know. I mean, either way, I mean, it's putting a lot of pressure on that defense. I mean, great, the defensive line's pretty good as it been in years past now. But if he doesn't play, I'm taking Bama.
Yeah, I heard that he practiced. I read an article from UGA Wire that he practiced throughout the bye week, and they expect that they expect him to play. And he said that Kirby Smart said, I don't know where all this is coming from. We have like 7 AC joint sprains, and it's not a significant injury or a major injury. Carson's fine. He practiced both days, but he's the quarterback.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It may not be his throwing arm. I can't really remember which shoulder it was that he injured.
I think it is his throwing arm. I think it is.
Okay. Well, if it is, then it is a significant injury, Kirby, because, he could get hit again, or it could affect his throws, and you're playing in Bama. I mean,
in Bama.
And it seems significant to me. So
yeah,
that's the biggest game here. Before we get out of here, I want to talk to you a little bit about Louisville, Notre Dame. What do you expect out of this one? Who you got?
I'll take. Hey, when have you not seen me jump on the Jeff Brom bandwagon? This is a game. I mean, he coached at Purdue too. He hates Notre Dame. Nothing would make him happier than bringing the Cards into South Bend and dropping a turd right in the middle of the field.
I hope they do. I'm cheering for them, and I love Coach Brom, and I like the way he coaches and the way his team plays. So I hope they show up and take down the Irish.
It's going to be a hell of a game, and Coach Brom, honestly, at some point he's going to be coaching on Sundays, guaranteed.
Yep. I agree, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you to BetUsSports.com. Thank you to National Streaming Sports Network for making this all possible. And tune back in on Man Coverage next week as we'll be breaking down college football week number 5. Go to @ManCoverage2075 on YouTube and download the show. James, keep your chin up. Have a great rest of the weekend. All right, bud?
Later on, bud.
Later, bro.